Hello and welcome to Nottingham for the final of the mixed division at UKU Nationals. You join us during the first point, and Deep Space have just converted a break to take a 1-0 lead on their opponents, Lemmings. Deep Space reached the final. I believe this is their third final. Reached the final before Lemmings. This is the first time they have been at this stage. Had a great tournament so far. But to bring you this game, my name is Sean Colfer. I'll be joined by Harry Mason. Harry, what did you see in the first point there?
I mean, it's hard to not just see the head spike from John Saville there to celebrate the goal. It was some nice, clean conversions from Deep Space, and I think that might be the key here. Is there may be one or two turns, and who can make the most of those turns that they get. Deep Space showing early on that their D-line able to put it in nice and simply.
Yeah, the Deep Space came out with a zone to slow Lemmings down. Got a turnover on a dropped reset. Deep Space coming into this game having defeated Reading. For some people, the favourites coming into the tournament, but Deep Space able to beat them with an excellent 6-2 run to close out the game. Lemmings, on the other hand, come out having beaten Smog in the semi-final, the three-time reigning national champions, and Lemmings went up 11-3 on Smog, Harry.
Yeah, I was able to watch a bit of that game. It was, I believe, 4-3, so it was a 7-point run from Lemmings.
Winning that game 15-9 in the end to take their place in the final. So Lemmings back out on offense. Deep Space switching to match. McGreedy with the disc. Over to this side. Back in to the middle of the field. Daly on the disc. Into Wilson. That's Pantling. Wilson wondering where to go deep. Rosie Coward has space. He tries to throw it, but it's a bit low, but he is saved by Ben Andrews, who takes the shot to Coward instead, and Coward reels that in. So hasn't quite gone where they intended, but there's a travel call from Vile on the throw by Wilson.
It's a very powerful shot by Wilson. You do wonder if it went where it was meant to go, and maybe the slight travel put him off his stride.
Perhaps. It looked as though he was trying to wrench it all the way around to get to Rosie Coward on the far hand side, trying to put some roll on the throw. Came out far too low. It's gone straight to Andrews, but the drag of the foot, Vile is called a travel, and it comes back to Wilson. So Coward still has plenty of space back there. So it's back with Wilson. Pantling centers it again. McGreedy and Daly. Looking for McGreedy, but that's going to go too far. Andrews trying to leave his feet to try and get there, but Nick Moss makes sure and swats it out the side of the pitch. So Sam Vile going to go and pick it up. GB mixed player. Andrews against Moss. Looking for Yorwith off the front of the stack. Being marked by McGreedy. Koshov to Vile. Yorwith has steps going deep, but we come to Nick Moss on this near side instead. Yorwith still with space. No one's caught up with her. And she catches it and toes it in at the back of the end zone for another break for Deep Space. What a start to the game they're having.
What a start, and what a grab by Yorwith. I think a couple of times there, so much space, and yet Deep Space still elect to put it right at the back of the end zone for her, making a run just that little bit more, just to show that Yorwith is going to outsprint almost anyone she comes up against.
Yeah, you could see on the throw out to Nick Moss on this near side, Yorwith was running with her hands in the air, indicating how free she was, and Lemmings just couldn't catch up and take that space away from her. And Deep Space converting for a second break of the game, and it does look as though Lemmings are responding by putting out some players who usually play on the D-line, give the O-line a bit of a rest to mentally gather themselves, get ready for this stage. As we said, Lemmings have never played on the national final stage. Lemmings quite a young team overall, whereas Deep Space have a bit more experience. Players who've played at this level before, who played at the national final. They've made the semi-final several years in a row. We're in the final in 2021.
quite a young team, but I want to give credit. Quite an old club, been around on the scene a while, and good to see them building up.
Yeah, my first club season I played with Lemmings. It was the first time I ever played club. That was in 2007,
You don't need to say.
2007 or 2008, so they've been around quite a while. I think it was 7. David Cubitt going to bring in this disc against the deep space zone. Clearly played for the sideline. The roller pull from Thomas. And the throw has gone to Sanders, despite the close attention of Thacker. It's a high stall to Cubitt. A lot of space on that far side of the field, but deep space trying to wedge Lemmings in on this sideline. And a foul called by Sanders. Foul called on, I think it's Thacker. Sanders trying to come around, saying that Thacker was pushing into him. Certainly, Lemmings trapped in a very, very, very narrow window here. Saville on the mark. Thacker and Archer doing a good job limiting any of the options around the disc. It looks as though the foul has been accepted, so we come back to Cubitt with no stall. Cubitt on the disc now. Still loads of space on the far side, and instead elects to try and go down the line, and it's swatted away by Rachel Lee with a pretty straightforward block.
Yeah, the wind has got a little bit blustery, so it's a bit hard to control the height of that disc. Lee able to make full advantage.
So deep space is D-line coming out again with Fisher looking for Gilboy, but good mark by May. So a big old pile of bodies there, but Saville gets it. Gilboy looks deep and sends it. Looking for Elena Archer, but just too flat, and Lemmings will pick it up, and they elect to go quickly before deep space can set that zone. So we've got match, we have a mismatch with Elena Archer, but May tries to go to Sanders as the zone was put on, and Sanders couldn't reel it in.
Yes, I think maybe some pressure defense from Thacker there for deep space.
Fisher picks it up. Sanders poaching deep, just electing to leave Fisher with the disc. Fisher is not going to bother playing until someone marks him.
They're 2-0 up.
There's no reason to. There's no reason to. Sanders closes the distance now. Thacker on the disc. Thacker looking for an option. Again, it's very tight around the disc there, and Cubitt gets a hand out, knocks it away from Gilboy. May goes deep. There's Haynes to May. Miras goes into the space. Haynes again to Cubitt, to Nicholson. Nicholson fakes into the end zone, looking at Haynes, not quite there. Tries to come backwards, but can't quite be reeled in there. And that's another slight miscue from the Lemmings O-line. Barnett just couldn't quite get it because it was just a little bit over her head.
I feel that may have been a shot or two to the end zone, wanting to take the safer option, but the wind taking it. Timeout called there by deep space.
Probably a safe call by deep space. It's been quite a messy point, several turnovers, so they'll try and set up a play to go out and convert this third break in a row. And we will take a quick break, as the players do. We'll be back with you soon.
Ultimate players, coaches and video enthusiasts. We've worked with major federations and the greatest events.
We're on a mission to make Ultimate huge. We want our videos and live streams to be free to watch.
We want to make stories that not only reach you,
but also reach people outside the Ultimate community.
The best in the world.
Become a member and
fund
fund
our
our
work to cover more events in the future and to bring more stories and live coverage to the eyes of the Ultimate world and beyond.
We are back here in Nottingham. As you see, tram go past our venue here. It's deep space. Going to be coming back in with the disc, and they are 2-0 up on Lemmings both breaks.
And with the disc again, trying to get another.
Coming in with Gilboy as they set up in a pretty standard 3-4 horizontal set. Lemmings are getting all set up to go. Gilboy on the disc with Fisher as his dump. Lee comes back into that space. Thomas as well. There's 2 dumps there. Thomas to Gilboy. Buzz switch from Lemmings. Slightly behind Lee, but she adjusts. An injury called. Miras goes down. Looks as though slightly tweaked that ankle. You could see she landed and then there was a second movement. Walking off though, which is a good sign, but yeah, came down slightly on that ankle. So Lemmings will be bringing on a sub. So Lee will get us started again. Lee to Saville, good pick up, low down. Thomas again, Thomas looking deep. Travel called. Is a contested travel?
I believe so. I think the travel call may be due to a change in direction. You have to slow down in a straight line.
Okay, seems like a largely pointless discussion, but here we are. Thomas on the disc. Not many options, goes deep, but finds Thacker. Thacker looking for an option to Vile, and there's a stall call, I assume. Because it was certainly a late shot. There were very few options for Ali Thomas.
I believe it was a travel.
A travel again?
Potentially. I saw it was uncontested, whatever it was, so it couldn't have been a stall out.
Okay, all right. So we're with Saville again. Saville goes that inside lane. Great grab by Thacker. Thacker looking deep. Now looking for a reset option. Archie goes up the line. There's Vile. Vile to Saville. May almost gets there. Putting a lot of pressure on the catch, but Saville comes down with it. Archer. Saville touched the disc a lot in this point. Thomas also touched the disc a lot in this point. Brings it down. Thomas goes deep. Nate Sanders poaching off the back. Ali Thacker's there, and Ali Thacker comes down with it. Great read. Nate Sanders got slightly stuck under the disc, and it is 3-0 to Deep Space.
I think I saw there that Thacker just put a small hand on Sanders' back. Not any pressure, like not held it there just to say like, I'm here, you know, you'll back into me or you'll foul me if you come back too far. Nice little just awareness thing. Sanders respecting that space, does try and go up, but Thacker comes down with it.
So that's 3-0 to D Space. All 3 points. Breaks may have been on D for every point of the game so far, but have converted every single one. Slightly messy point that last one. 5 turnovers.
Yeah, the previous 2 conversions for Deep Space have been clean. They've got the turn and then they've scored. This one they needed 3 attempts, I believe. I apologise. They had 2 turns, needed 3 attempts, and a 15-pass score as well.
Yeah, Lemmings so far struggling to deal with the Deep Space pressure. Deep Space D in the semi-final certainly stepped up late in the game, was forcing Reading to take a lot of passes and was doing a good job converting them once they got that initial break. And that pressure has carried through so far. And they are still playing just D-line, so they haven't been bringing any of the offense players over as yet, keeping them fresh for when they do have to play offense, as Sam Vile, who's staying out there, pulls, fielded by Megan Daly to Wilson. Wilson to Pantling. Pantling looking downfield, but there's not much there. It's kind of a loose zone from Deep Space. It's matched, but they're all the way off. And Katma goes up to take that down with the right hand. Katma with the disc. He's looking for options now. As Mark Lubert elects to look at Daly instead. He's getting high in the stall. Coward with the disc. Coward turns down the throw to Pantling. Daly coming back. Coward getting to a high stall now. Coward sends it out for Wilson. Wilson catches it, hangs in the air for him nicely. Coward goes to the end zone looking for it. But that is a turnover. Phil Samwell for deep space, laying out charitably, you could say, to make sure.
That high stall count reset throw from Coward, I'd say I was actually very impressed by it. To do a forehand that hangs in the air like that, it was actually a very difficult shot for such a small space to make sure the team can keep the disc, giving enough space for a layout if it's needed, but then not able to convert on that with the pass afterwards.
Yeah, the throw from David Wilson is a little too flat, a little too fast, and it is a turnover in deep space. Have another opportunity to get a break. Kemp centers to Koshov. Yorworth is on a bike, but Koshov instead comes back to Hill and Sandwell, one of the captains of this team. Back to Hill. Hill comes down, some pressure from Daly, but we carry on. Vile, all the way around, long way around the force. Back to Sandwell, and Marklew gets a hand in there to knock it away, but there's definitely a collision there. It looked as though Marklew got there first, and Sandwell did hit Marklew in the attempt, but we will see if the players had a different view of it and whether Marklew getting there first did cause any contact with Sandwell.
Just a nice thing to remember when you're watching moments like this. That we may get a replay, we get the camera angles. They just have one instance to try and sort out what happens, and in fact they will ask the sideline for other perspectives, and they agree on a turnover and a clean defense.
Yeah, it looked to me as though Marklew did get there first. Pleased he's all right as well, like a pretty tough spill afterwards. So the Lemmings O-line gets it back, and this is as close as they have been to the end zone. We have isolation on the front from Kapma, and a hammer from Wilson to Coward. That hammer is too flat. Coward lays out but can't quite get there. It's a good attempt though.
Hannah Yorworth for deep space had come out to bracket that front of the end zone pass, make that more difficult. What that meant was that Coward was free in the back. However, it's a much more difficult throw to get to Coward. They elected for the hammer there, and quite a fast hammer at that.
Yeah, very flat, very difficult trajectory to read, and if you are not on point with that kind of thing, there's no chance that anyone's cleaning it up behind.
Coward with a good attempt though.
Very good attempt, very good layout. Coward, very strong player, has played under 24 mixed, has played in Reading previously. Nick Moss has Yorworth going deep and takes that shot. That might be a little too much even for Hannah Yorworth. Just too far. Good option though. Yorworth had a lot of space back there.
Knowing Rosie Coward a little bit, I feel I will also have to shout out to the Wobbly Hedgehogs, her junior team, who started the ultimate career she's now on. For deep space, they definitely want to find Hannah Yorworth long, and you've got to say that's normally a good option. With that said, it was a very flat huck. There's no space for those sideways angles. Had to put it out in front and hope it hangs there, and that's a difficult shot in these conditions.
Yeah, the execution slightly off, but Yorworth certainly, we've seen on several occasions now, she is going deep with plenty of space. The Lemmings defenders are really struggling to stay with her on those long cuts, so something to look out for as we continue this game. Daly poached, decides to take that poach deep. Wilson with the disc. Throws the IO to Marklew, but Marklew had stopped his cut. Vile with the disc now, just outside the end zone. He's looking for an option. Koshov. Koshov back to Vile. Two GB mixed teammates just playing a bit of pitch and catch. Georgie Hill just outside the end zone. There's Phil Sandwell with the catch, uncontested clap catch on that break side, and deep space, 4-0 up in the National Championship final and in an extremely positive position.
And you've got to say, that's how you want to do your end zone offense. A lot of people have done the classic drills where you swing the disc around the end zone laterally to try and open up that space. Deep space very happy to go left and right until there's a simple shot to the end zone, not trying to force anything, just relying on the cutters to create that space and the break throws to make it easy.
So Lemmings are going to have to figure something out here, whether we see another D-line. It does look like we're seeing some players we haven't seen so far on the field. See a different look, try and get something that's going to get them started. We did see them obviously go on a long run against Smog, another one of the best teams in the country. To go 11-3 up against Smog, you're going to have some pretty long runs. So they're clearly capable of getting those breaks. But when you are in your first national final, I would say this is among the worst possible starts that you could have. They would have talked about beforehand, trying to come out positively and try and use their energy to get in the game.
there is some hope for them. They have been at the end zone. They've had some decent opportunities in terms of cutting options they could look at as well. And they have been getting some turns on deep space. There's things they can keep hold of. Deep space are not a monolith, but you'd certainly rather be in deep space's shoes right now.
And another point where deep space sticking with their usual D players. Those O players are going to have to go for another warm-up at some point soon. So Lemmings with the disc. Or over on this side to Howard. So that same zone from deep space again. Thacker collapsing in on the disc. Peach with the disc. Back to Orr. Orr tries to go with the inside. Gilboy's there though.
Off his calf.
Leyland couldn't reel that one in. The inside thrown by Orr. Between marks, and Fisher picks it up. Looking for Thacker at the front. Fakes at that. Comes over to Rowe instead. Rowe looking to get to Archer. Archer trips. Now, was that got her feet tangled, or was there a collision with McGreedy? It looks as though she's saying there's a collision with McGreedy. There's a foul call. She certainly was off balance when the disc was there.
Yeah, something definitely happened. I think McGreedy may be sort of saying, I just believe in just take a straight line, but then what do I know? It appears like it's an accepted foul, and now the discussion will just be, what's the outcome here? Was it a clear enough goal opportunity that you'd override Spirit and give it? Via the rules, it would be the deep space player at the front of the end zone.
I think it's going to be the deep space player at the front of the end zone. It's the spot of the foul. There we go.
Yeah.
No, there's some discussion about what exactly was. There we go, the spot of the foul. Yeah, I don't think it was obvious enough. I think this is a good outcome. So it's with deep space again. Fisher. Gilboy hits down the line. Fisher looking for a round. Good force. Prevents those throws. Fisher throws that IO all the way across, and Orr picks it out. So it's now Howard going deep, looking for Bassner, but that's going to be too far for Bassner. He was catching up to it, but a little more hang. He might have had a chance, but Lemmings clearly snatching at it slightly, and it's understandable given the position they're in.
We've seen that throw try to protect in this game before. The disc is not sitting as you want it. You either need some shape or you need to holster that disc a little bit longer.
Thomas throws it, but that is straight at the ground in front of Fisher. He can't get down in time. So Lemmings with a golden opportunity to break their duck here. Lemmings, Orr looking for something at the front. Nothing there. He's getting quite high in the stall now. It's back to Leyland. And Leyland in at the front of the end zone to Howard. And Lemmings on the board, 4-1, and that is about as much needed as a hold can be.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily the nicest. We saw that on the deep space end zone, they were happy to just swing it, never really felt panicked until something opened up. Lemmings getting to quite a high stall count there, having to reset it, and then somehow a space just opening up in the middle for them, parting the white sea, as it were, for a Lemmings goal for them to get on the board in this mixed UKU Nationals final.
So a tough start for Lemmings, but they have an opportunity now to make their own impact. As we see them get a D-line out for the first time, and we see for the first time deep space's O-line. None of those players have played any points at this stage, haven't been brought over. I suppose no point playing and wearing yourself out when your D-line is doing such a good job. See Axel Amala, Omar Khan and Alvaro Otamendi, and on the female matching side we've got Layla Denniston, Claire Baker, Fee Ray and Ruth Cordry. All playing their first point of the game. Denniston to Khan. Khan faking the around, looking for Amala on the break side off the front, but Amala takes that down with two hands. Denniston going deep, marked by Haynes. Haynes, very, very quick defender, under 24 mixed player. Otamendi, Spanish open cutter, comes back around to Amala. Amala goes all the way down the field to GB Women's Ruth Cordron. Cordron looking for a reset. Good D by Will Peach, but Amala just about able to reel it in. Cordron to Otamendi. Now Cordron hit the line. Otamendi looking for an option, but Haynes does a great job taking away the backwards Denniston bounces up the line, gets the inside. Just outside the end zone now for deep space. A lot of movement, and Baker calls a foul before the scoring pass, and technically speaking, an injury is an immediate stoppage. On comes Hannah Yorwith for Claire Baker. The deep space O-line not showing any sign of rust, despite not having played so far in this game. As we just have a quick discussion about where we're coming in on. Everyone ready to go. And violation. Oh, Lemmings have also made a sub. Lemmings are also making a sub. That was very late.
Putting someone fresh on Hannah Yorwith, maybe not the worst decision.
No, Evie Harms coming in off the sideline. Denniston throws the same pass that she threw before the just after the injury to Ray to score. Deep Space's first O point of the game. Clean hold.
That's what Deep Space need to show they can do. You know, it's been quite a few turns in a row. It's actually been since the second point that we've had a clean offense, whether that was from the first turn or from the off. Deep Space showing what they can do there, and they're using that left hand of hers very well. She is a left-handed player, so I know it's not offhand, although she's also quite close to ambidextrous, I'm aware as well.
Yeah, Layla Denniston using that lefty pivot to great effect for such a long time now. One of the best players in this division. As we talked about in the semi-final, going over to America to play with New York Exist for their series later in the year. So looking forward to seeing her play with such a talented team. So Lemmings getting their O-line back out. We see Katma, Wilson, and Andrews with Pantling, Coward, Daly, and I can't make out who the far one is. But we'll get there, don't worry. So Daly runs towards the disc. It's Evie Harms, who came on as the injury substitution, is the 7th player there. Andrews coming under is the option they want. Andrews, GB under 24 player, with the disc. It's got Wilson 3 behind, takes the dump. Deep Space playing that very, very saggy handler mark that worked for them so well in the semi-final and has worked in the first few points here. Katma to Wilson and down to Pantling. And Deep Space are now in a much stricter match. Coward, back to Pantling, who has time, takes that down. Andrews coming out the stack. Wilson with the inside, and there looks to be a pick call by Zaza Kemp, marking Coward, and Coward goes back to Wilson. Coming in with no stall. Katma looking for space, but can't find anything. Koshov. Daly coming wide, that option not going. Koshov trying to come off to prevent the throw to Coward, but it's perfectly placed. Coward grabs it, and it looks to me as though Andrews caught that, but was called not in, and Andrews just going out for a stroll, wandering around, but Vile calls him back. Andrews on the disc, just outside the end zone now. Bounces that backhand, and that is a hand on that from So, and Vile is the one that brings that in. Just a slight execution error on that backhand for Andrews, and now Deep Space looking to make them pay. Sam Vile breaks the mark to Hannah Yorwith. Hill, Yorwith again has space deep. Still going, Koshov decides to throw it, and it's perfectly placed. And that is into the hands of Hannah Yorwith for another Deep Space break. And Lemmings, having been on the doorstep, just a slight execution error, and Deep Space take an even more commanding 6-1 lead.
You got to say Deep Space in control at this point.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's suddenly signs of Lemmings and what we've seen in other games from them. Maybe they're still over that giddy high from the semi-final. On the other hand, maybe we have to credit Deep Space's defense a little bit more here as well. They are certainly working hard. They are not giving any easy passes. As we saw there, the reset very tightly marked, maybe forces that disc a little bit high. As soon as that disc went up, Sam Weil, who had been on the force, was chasing it down, making sure he was first in position for any bobble as well. So it's no coincidence that in these 50-50 discs, Deep Space is often coming out as favourites.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about, or I'm mentioning the kind of teams that these other players have played, or the other teams these players have played for. Mentioning a lot of Deep Space players who played for GB, Spain, like senior international teams. And with Lemmings, it's largely under-24 teams. We haven't got that much full-level international experience with these teams. Nate Sanders about to pick up the disc, played with GB Open indoors earlier this year. But there's not too much senior international experience outside of that. And that is showing at the moment. Deep Space really punishing the error as well. 6 turnovers total in 6 points so far, and they are, or in 6 scores for them, and they are 6-1 up as Lemmings play against this zone. Scuba over the top to Sanders. McGreedy goes to the ground to bring it in. Over on that far side, Orr. Nice break as well. Howard with the disc. Sanders to Howard, who catches it the second time of asking.
Gets an extra yard.
May to Orr. Lemmings working this nicely. They'll be looking for a reset now though. Orr's getting quite high in the stall. Comes back to Sanders. McGreedy's in the dump spot. Instead goes backwards to Orr, who looks to go to Sanders again, who snatches it just in front of Ali Thacker. Sanders fakes. He's looking for an option. Comes back to Orr. Got McGreedy wide open on this side. There's nothing at all in her area. Tim Gilboy standing just in front. Lemmings are finally off that sideline. May finds McGreedy, and McGreedy tries to come to Sanders, just behind him, just in front of Michaela Miras. May in the area as well, but can't quite get there, and that is another opportunity for Deep Space's D-line. And that one, you've got to say, Lemmings had an opportunity, and there was just too many options, and she couldn't quite take any of them.
Yeah, sort of halfway between two options, and didn't quite pick either. Lovely spacing, but a quick turn. Lemmings will pick up.
All with a disc. Like he hurt himself on the pivot, but he looks okay. Big bid from Gilboy. May to Sanders, and Lemmings hold, but another tough hold where they've had to throw a lot of passes, grind it all the way out, and they are relying slightly on Deep Space making mistakes rather than taking the disc away from them themselves at the moment.
It was a lovely initial movement through that zone. Matchup I was not expecting to see, but I've been quite excited for this game, is Fackler on Deep Space versus Sanders of Lemmings. Fackler have been very switched on, which you love to see as the wall in a zone, and Sanders struggling to find the space he usually would be able to find. Maybe it's a little bit physical, but very good overall, certainly making them work for it. With that said, they did open up that space. We'd mentioned McCready had been waiting in this open space on the big diagonal away from the disc. They finally worked it through and did have, I would say, an open shot at the end zone as well before Deep Space got to go. They turned, and Lemmings got another shot at the apple.
Yeah, Lemmings eventually working through. You're right, Harry. Thacker and Archer doing a great job as the 2 points in that zone, making it so difficult, pushing Lemmings onto that sideline, and then absolutely locking them in jail, not letting them get out of it, making them take lots and lots of passes. And so 28 passes for Lemmings there before the turnover, and obviously a much quicker score after the Deep Space turnover. But Lemmings' 2 holds have both come with turns, and the turns they've scored on have been drops or one drop, one throwaway just outside the end zone. When it's further than that, they are struggling a little against the Deep Space pressure. It's now Amala. Had Denniston going deep. But decides to holster that, looking backwards instead, and Ray throws over the top of the mark. That was a high stall situation, I think. He was isolated there after catching in the middle. And this is a shot for the Lemmings D-line, which is the first time we've seen that. Cubitt to May, staying out there. Looking for Peach inside. Peach fakes at the end zone. Pantling. That's not Pantling, sorry. That is Ellis. Great takedown there by Basnett. Basnett looking for an option now. May is in front of him. Looking for Peach. And Basnett is able to reel that in despite the layout bid from Denniston. That's a break from Lemmings. And that is a big, big break because they need a lot more of them to get back into this game.
You can tell there was a lot of energy in that celebration. Lemmings knew they needed that point and the D-line delivered. Something I have noticed about Deep Space is their stack is very far away from their handlers. They're relying on their handlers to get free, and if they want a gainer, they want it to be big. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy, and there Lemmings was able to shut down those big upfield gainers. It left Amala a little bit stranded and forced to take a bit of a floaty option.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to play a kind of a 1-6 system and leaving space for the front of the stack to drive into, but you're right, Harry, it's ending up with, if the first option doesn't work, they're all a long, long way away.
So I noticed it in the previous offense point they used, and I believe Cordron was the one who'd got free. It got them a huge gainer and got them an easy goal as well. So we can see how it's supposed to work when it works well. Can Lemmings identify that and maybe use this big space to their advantage?
So we see the Lemmings D-line back out. Similar line for Deep Space, keeping the offense out there. Ellis was the one who drew the Denniston matchup on the last point, so you would expect we'll be doing the same here. As Ellis holds the disc up and pulls. A roller pull, probably get to around about the brick mark. Itamendi gets there just beforehand. And Daly to Cordron. Leyland on Denniston, and Denniston has space and time, shoots deep for Fee-Ray, but just too far, drifts out the back. Ray, I don't think he would have been able to tow that in, even if she would have got there. It's just a good 4 or 5 meters overthrown from Denniston.
Yeah, sometimes as a thrower, you just have to look at yourself and said, I put a little bit too much on that one.
Yeah, it happens. It happens maybe further, closer to the end zone than she expected. Sanders will be picking it up for Lemmings. Pretty central on his own end zone line. Andrews is the one isolated out in space. Cordron drops off into that lane. Finds his way to Andrews on this sideline. And he shoots it deep, looking for Howard, who's found a lot of space there. Howard looking for an option downfield. Comes to Leyland. Leyland looking for an option. There's a pick call. There's a pick call pretty much immediately. So Leyland coming in on 1.
As a reminder for what this would be, this is Lemmings looking for their 3rd point in a row.
Leyland with a disc. Sanders comes out the stack. Marked by Khan. Finds space. Leyland looking to go straight across the front. But it's caught by Haynes just in front of her, and that is the 3rd point in a row. 2 breaks for Lemmings, and they are starting to switch themselves on in the game, Lemmings. So Deep Space taking a timeout. They are taking a break, and we will do the same.
We are a group of ultimate players, coaches and video enthusiasts. We've worked with the major federations and the greatest events.
We're on a mission to make Ultimate huge. We want our videos and live streams to be free to watch,
We want to make stories that not only reach you,
but also reach people outside the Ultimate community.
Like and subscribe. ULTI.TV, the best in the world.
Become a member and
fund
fund
our
our
work
work.
to cover more events in the future and to bring more stories and live coverage to the eyes of the ultimate world and beyond.
Welcome back to Nottingham, the mixed national final between Deep Space from London and Lemmings from Leamington. Lemmings starting out the game with a little bit of a nightmare, going 4-0 down, 4 breaks in a row for Deep Space, but they have fought their way back to 6-4. They've scored 3 in a row. Deep Space called a timeout to discuss things. How do you think things are going at the moment, Harry?
I mean, they're going excitingly. Deep Space looking like they're in control of that game. Needing to take a timeout, though, because Lemmings have got 3 in a row. Let's see what they can do here as they change their offensive formation.
Yeah, coming out in a horizontal stack rather than the kind of 1-6 vert we've seen previously. Cordron on the disc. Has to look for a reset. Peach on Amala. Amala able to find a bit of space. But he has not a great deal happening downfield in front of him. And Peach swats away the reset from Cordron. Amala not able to get away there. Peach gets his hand on it, and this is a short field for the Lemmings D-line. As David Cubitt walks to the disc. GB Mixed Masters training squad players, just a year too young. May with the disc. Goes to Nicholson, but Amala read the situation and gets there just ahead of her to knock it away. Crucial intervention.
Amala may be feeling like he wants to step up and show that Deep Space is still in this game. The D-line have been playing fantastically for Deep Space so far. Let's see if the O-line can capitalize on this opportunity.
Yeah, certainly a game where the D-line seems to be on top. Richard Lee on that far side. Looking for an option. Again, not a great deal happening downfield, and that's gone into the stack where Daly hasn't got it, but Fee Ray, the third chance of asking, brings it down to save Deep Space's blushes. And Daly goes deep. Well, Peach doesn't bid for that. Amala able to reel it in. Itamendi runs to the end zone. With Cook now. Cook looking for an option, goes down the line to Amala, but the wind takes that one, pushes it higher up, and it's all Peach. Cubitt clears that space. Peach is looking for that shot. Goes with the offhand throw to Nicholson, to Cubitt. Back to Peach. Cubitt again. May has space, but Cubitt breaks the mark to Miras. Shot goes, Peach looking for it, and it looks as though he's caught it and landed his feet in, and that is another break for Lemmings. 6-5 to Deep Space, but Lemmings have scored 4 in a row now.
Something else that I want to highlight here is the Lemmings O-line had to take quite a few bites at the apple to get it in. The Lemmings D-line has actually been fairly clinical. They did have a turn in that point, but previous couple of points they did it with 0 turns. This kind of makes Deep Space a bit more worried because they know if they turn, the Lemmings are going to have a good opportunity to try and turn that into a point, as it is now 6-5.
6-5, so from 4-0 we are back at 6-5, and that means we've only had 3 holds in this game. 2 from Lemmings and 1 from Deep Space. Other than that, it has been all D thriving here in Nottingham. 3 breaks for Lemmings and 5 breaks for Deep Space. So Deep Space still 2 breaks up, with Lemmings starting on offense, but certainly they're going to be feeling a lot more nervous than they were 20 minutes ago.
And I say, Sean, it looks a bit like Deep Space are bringing on some of those D-line players, or mixing up the lines a little bit after the offensive line has been made to do quite a few points in a row.
Yes, you are right. There's Fisher, Yorworth, and Vile, who've all been playing a lot more D than O. Denniston, a mile offside, goes back to the line, but that's fine. And that pull looks like it went out quite a while ago. And looks as though Khan has elected to take it on the sideline.
It's taking it roughly level with Lemmings' own brick mark there.
Taking it with the a much shorter field. Deep Space still not fully set up despite the short field. Khan looks for Amala, being marked by Howard. Denniston with plenty of space takes it down in the center of the field. Denniston breaks the mark. Fisher looking for Amala. Amala scores the goal, and Deep Space back on the board, go up 7-5, and they are getting their D-line back out onto the field.
I mean, one of the things is you've got to make the most of the opportunities given to you. With that pull, you've got to say they were given quite a good opportunity. With that said, that maybe hybrid line, that mix of D-line, O-line, able to do the job that the previous 2 lines, 3 lines had not been able to.
Yeah, Lemmings trying to really, there's a lot of discussion about pulling over the last year or so that I've been involved in or heard talked about, and it's the risk-reward situation. Are you willing to take a couple of bricked pulls here and there, trying to throw a huge one that lands in the back corner of an end zone, because that has so much more added value than a brick pull has negative value. And I think with that one, Lemmings just trying to get a huge added value pull, landing it right on the sideline in the end zone, but sending it out too early, and the negative value of getting it on your own brick mark rather than the opposition's brick mark is pretty big.
That is pretty high. I also as well, there's a difference between risking a brick and risking something of that magnitude that you're giving up.
Lemmings not quite getting that risk reward right on that point, but they are still in the midst of a pretty good run here. They scored 4 points in a row. Scored 4 points in a row. And they are coming back out on offense to try and get their 3rd hold of the game. So we see the pull from Sam Vile. This one landing at around about the Lemmings' own brick mark. Marklew goes downfield. Nice catch there from Terrell, who goes deep looking for Andrews. Andrews, tall receiver, but there's very little chance he's going to be able to save that. Just drifting out of the side of the pitch, marked by Axel Amala, interestingly. That is an O-line player, and now that I look, we have Amala, we have Denniston, and we have Itamendi, all of whom have been playing on the O-line for Deep Space, but have come out on this D, knowing that if Deep Space are able to get a break here, that is half.
Yes, that shot from Terrell, apparently going out of bounds a little earlier than I thought it was. It was fairly straight, but just a little bit high, and then caught at the end to make it, so there wasn't, sadly, a chance for any bid or greatest.
I agree with you, Harry. I thought that went out in the end zone. I thought Andrews was tracking that all the way. It just went out in the end zone, but clearly angle is not the best here. Deep space clear out to give Yorworth a shot going deep, but Vile has put a bit too much on that one. A lot too much on that one, and Yorworth can't get there.
I think that might be one of the first hucks I've seen Sam Vile miss for a while.
Yeah, usually such a consistent player, and Yorworth very forgiving as a receiver. There's a lot of stuff she can take in, but just too far for her on that occasion. You can see Deep Space really trying to get Yorworth on the disc, clearing out space to give her an opportunity.
I mean, 2 goals so far for her.
Markley to Daly. Daly around to Wilson. Wilson has Andrews. Andrews goes deep now, looking for Rosie Coward. Coward has steps on Denniston and takes it down despite the pressure of Nikki Koshov. An absolutely fantastic catch from Rosie Coward.
Doing the University of Birmingham proud. I think she's still got a couple more years there as well. Such speed and acceleration. Despite the pressure, which, you know, is not always the most comfortable thing to deal with from incoming players, someone trying to accelerate past you, but if you've got position, you sometimes, or in Rosie's case, more often than not, have the disc.
Yeah, had position on Denniston as well, like hardly an easy player to get position on, but had a good position. It was a nice throw from Andrews. Koshov steaming in to try and get the bid. Good play from him to avoid any kind of physical contact, putting the pressure on without making any kind of dangerous play, but excellent concentration from Rosie Coward. Takes it in and gets Lemmings back on the board, 7-6.
Got to say, at the start we saw a bit of a deep space run, then we saw a bit of a Lemmings comeback. That point felt some of the most even Stevens I felt in a while. Both teams sort of gathered themselves up. Deep Space have recovered from the slight knockback they have. Half will be at 8, so Lemmings really do need to make sure to put this one in to avoid ceding too much of a deficit from the half time.
So wind picking up slightly, maybe able to hear on our microphones. It's now quite a bit stronger than it was earlier in the day, coming from left to right as we and the camera look at it. So Deep Space have the wind at their backs here, as Itamendi misses the disc completely to try and stop the roll, but it's a fairly forgiving roll after that anyway. Cordron with the disc, looking on the break side, comes back to Cook. Cook over to Cordron. Cordron looking downfield with it against an FM from Lemmings, but Cordron puts it too far for Yorworth, and Lemmings have an opportunity here to get back on level terms, which, considering they went down 4-0, looked extremely unlikely not that long ago. Cubitt walking towards the disc. Cubitt has it. Comes inside to Haynes. The poach from Cordron not working, but she's back on her mark now. Haynes looking upfield, looking for an option. Orr comes back, catches it despite seemingly nearly falling over. Very impressive. Over on the far side. That is Ellis. Ellis with the disc. Cubitt offering an option, but that bounces off Cubitt's fingers and goes backwards. Itamendi picks up and goes quickly. Looking to come back to Cook, but there's a foul called, I believe. An accepted foul. So the frantic nature of the point slows down slightly. Peach marks Amala well. Itamendi's still looking at Amala, but Ray comes back instead. Ray to Yorworth. Quite frantic downfield from Deep Space, but Itamendi has space. Or leaps in the air thinking it's coming over his shoulder. It was actually more likely to hit him in the ankle. I'm not 100% sure what the call is, because Itamendi thought Orr was going to jump into him. Orr had no idea where the disc was there, Harry.
It's an odd situation because Orr's positioning was such that Deep Space couldn't go and make a play on the disc. With that said, Orr's behavior was a little bit dangerous there.
He certainly jumps without having any idea where the disc is. The discussion, I suppose, is whether he's jumped and Itamendi's come into him, or whether he's jumping in towards Itamendi. I suppose that's a discussion. He certainly jumped blind.
I think Orr unaware as well that Itamendi was wanting to go towards the disc, and so just as Orr jumped with his foot in the air, Itamendi was trying to come in the opposite direction.
Yeah, there's definitely a situation where Orr's kind of jumping blind, and you're right, Harry. Itamendi is trying to go towards the disc, and is going to be going towards Orr's feet, which he doesn't expect at all. It looks as though they are calling it a turnover. An unusual situation. You don't see a lot of those.
I think that, for me, that's probably fair, that it was probably going to be a turnover. On the other hand, it's right to tell Orr, I think, that they were a little bit dangerous in that situation.
So Cubitt with the disc, and a hand block by Elliot Cook gets the disc back. Telegraphed where he wanted to go with that late stall throw, and Cook looking for Itamendi, who catches on the front corner. And that is a hold, a tough hold for Deep Space, gets them to half at 8-6 up.
Itamendi gets the goal. You know, after a bit of a long discussion, you can feel a little bit frustrated to still then execute, do those cuts and make the grab. There's a little bit of the mentality there.
So Deep Space 8-6 up. They will be coming out on offense for the second half. And with the teams taking a break for halftime, as we go through the score again there, you see Elliot Cook able to find space at the front of the end zone for Itamendi. Little spike afterwards, but as the teams take a break, we will take one as well. Back with you shortly.
Always on the move? You can keep up to date with ULTI.TV on all of our social media channels. Like, follow, subscribe, share us with a friend, or send us a message just to say hey. Thank you for supporting us in our mission to grow Ultimate everywhere.
And we are back in Nottingham at the UK National Championships, at the venue where we've had nationals for a couple of years now, also had World Under-24s early this year at the Highfields Sports complex. It's a nice facility here, and we have been seeing a very exciting championships all around, Harry, because we have seen a first-time champion in the Open division, Chevron defeating Clapham for the first time. Clapham won 21 in a row, but Chevron winning, and we are guaranteed a first-time winner in this game.
Yes, it's been Smog for 3 years in a row. Smog instead in the 3-4 game, defeated by Lemmings in their semi-final. A reverse from the regional final.
And it looks as though Reading against Smog, which has been, you know, the national final several times. It looks as though it may have gone Smog's way, although we'll check on the score there. But yes, it's the first time Lemmings have ever made the final. Third time Deep Space have made the final. They've never won. I believe they've lost to Smog twice.
I know for a fact a couple of years ago they upset Reading in the same semi-final on this same pitch and had to face against Smog in the final game. They did the job again. They beat Reading in the semi-final, and if you beat Reading in a semi-final, you've earned your way here. Can they now finish off the job against Lemmings, or will Lemmings come back?
We will not be seeing a first-time champion in the women's division. The women's division final is one we have seen many times over the years. It is Iceni versus Bristol, but sure to be an exciting game. Both semi-finals very tight. Bristol 9-7 down to Spice, scored 3 points in a row to win. And Iceni tight with LMU, the reigning champion, all the way, and eventually won 11-8. Caudron seems to have caught that disc and come up with a bit of a limp, so she is calling injury as the Deep Space O-line comes out to try and get a hold to start this second half. They are up 8-6, went on a 4-break run to start the game, went up 4-0 with 4 breaks. They were 6-1 up, and then Lemmings went on a break of their own to bring it back to 7-6. But Deep Space still up 2 breaks. They put this in, they will really solidify their position. So Georgie Hill on the disc. Hill quite low towards Itamendi, but he's able to reel that one in. An FM from Lemmings. Itamendi takes that inside lane to Denniston. Beautiful inside from Denniston. Finds Khan. Khan looking for an option and has Amala coming back. Amala to Denniston and back to Amala. Itamendi's got the front cone. Nice easy score for Deep Space, just what they needed coming out of half.
And just what the O-line needed as well. We saw towards the end of that first half, the lines were starting to mix a little bit due to the O-line and the D-line having to play a lot of points in a row. This time a bit more of a solid O-line for Deep Space, able to put in that goal without a turn.
Yeah, a nice clean hold for Deep Space. Only their third of the game. It's been a lot of turns in this game. Definitely the defense have had the best of it, as we see Itamendi. You can see as soon as Amala caught that, Itamendi comes out the stack and has space the whole way. Cubit doesn't even try and put a force on Amala, tries to get into that lane to prevent the throw, but just can't get there. A very impressive performance so far from Itamendi. He has 2 goals. His speed always a factor whenever he's on the field. We were saying in the semi-final, he and Sam Wilson, 2 of the fastest players in the UK.
We need a combine at some point, don't we?
Oh, definitely. That'd be very exciting. I would definitely watch that. Gilboy with the pull for Deep Space. You can see how much the wind has really stepped up. That pull doesn't even get to the brick mark. Still coming from left to right as we watch it. And Saville calling a delay of game while Wilson's walking towards the disc after the pull. That seems aggressive. Wilson goes down the line. Andrews, loads of time, loads of space. Inside to Kapmer. Kapmer turns down the throw to Marklew as Fisher gets in place. And Deep Space staying in this zone quite far into the field. You don't see this often. Wilson on the disc, looking for an option. And the option he takes is Rosie Coward, wide open in the center of the field for a nice, easy, quick, clean hold for Lemmings.
I think that's only the second goal for Rosie Coward, which seems like it's more given how often she's been free. With that said, was an interesting choice, as you say, by Deep Space to stay in that zone. There is a bit more of a wind, so I can see the logic why. On the other hand, Lemmings weren't forced to take a big high shot to the end zone. There was just space in the middle. If you're going to stay in that zone, you've at least got to force out something a bit spicy from the opposition.
Yep, 100%. If you're staying in a zone in the end zone, you really want to protect the middle of the field, try and make them attack a cone, and when they attack a cone, you just try and shift the D over there. But I don't know whether it was a miscommunication, whether the force wasn't quite set. But Wilson, nice open space, and Rosie Coward, much easier score than her last one, with huge pressure from Deniston and Koshov right on her shoulder as she reeled it into the back of the end zone. So the Lemmings D-line looking to come out and cause more issues for Deep Space's O. Deep Space offensively, very talented obviously, a lot of players who can cause problems for any defense. Amala, Itamendi, Deniston all playing very well so far, but they'll be looking to get another clean hold. After a spell of a lot of breaks, Harry, we've had trading for the last 5 points.
Yeah, so some nice clean holds. That has worked in Deep Space's favour with the half as well, as we see another pull go out of bounds for Lemmings.
Another risk-reward situation, although it looks like that one went out past halfway. Ali Thomas indicating it went out just slightly further than the brick mark, so not really a great deal of benefit taking it on the sideline. And Elliot Cook will take it from the brick mark. The Australian striding with purpose towards the brick. And throws to Khan. Khan looking for the break. To Cook. Amala has space. I don't know who that throw was for. I'm not sure it's for Itamendi, but Itamendi has reached up for it and the wind has slightly bobbled it.
I mean, I don't know if it was for Itamendi, but he had to catch it because the defense was there as well.
So Lemmings with an opportunity here. Leyland on the disc. Inside shot. Absolutely fantastic catch from Ellis. Looked like it was going to be too low and far away, but she has reeled that in beautifully. Haynes goes deep, looking for Howard. Howard doesn't know Amala's on his back, and that is contact from Amala. And it looks as though there was a foul called, but Howard has retracted that because it was over his head anyway, and the turn will stand, although I have to say, very risky from Amala. That was a lot of contact in Howard's back.
Yeah, I potentially even thought Howard maybe if he'd been able to turn and sprint in that direction could have had a bit on it as well.
But the foul, if it ever was called, was retracted, and it's now Deep Space and offense. The O-line disc in hand again. Khan to Deniston. Deniston looking for an option. Turns down anything downfield. Looking for Cook now. Around to Cook. Lovely throw, but Cook, I'm not sure whether he bounced in the air or whether the pressure from May slightly put him off, but doesn't reel that one in with his left hand.
Seen a couple of those now with throws that look like should be quite simple catches because they're quite zippy. A lot harder than they would otherwise be.
There must be some wind affecting as well. These players too good to be making mistakes like that so frequently without external conditions affecting them. So Leyland now on the disc for the Lemmings D-line. May slashes across. Sanders comes back for it. Peach goes deep. Comes to May instead. May on the sideline. Doesn't seem to have a great deal of options, but Sanders gives him something coming back. Howard comes under. Goes to Peach. It's all a little frantic again for Lemmings. Offhand throw to Sanders, who carries on, but there's a travel call from Khan, it looks like.
Sanders being a very central figure in this offense. Sort of every other pass going through him. I could see why Deep Space might think he's got to be traveling to get through us.
Maybe. It looks as though we're coming back to what Peach thought, but it did look like Sanders catched and released pretty quickly. Obviously very difficult to tell from where we are exactly whether it's a travel. Even on the replay, I imagine it's probably pretty difficult, but could be a slight change of direction from Sanders, and it looks as though the call has been retracted. The call's been retracted, so it's staying with May on the sideline. Sanders has a few yards on Khan. And it's Deniston on May on that far side as some switching around. And comes out to Peach. Back to May again. Peach wants to clear that space. Sanders comes into it. And it's a big inside throw as a pick is called. So looks like we'll be coming back to May, or will the disc remain in the hands of Ellis.
I'm not quite sure. Certainly the pick had been called quite early on, and so you have to sort of sort things out afterwards, but it looks like the disc will stay where it is.
The pick definitely came before the throw, but I think this is probably a good outcome, Harry. It didn't look like it affected it hugely.
No.
So Ellis comes back to May. Has everything in front of him. Sanders looking for space, finds space. May hits the front cone. Sanders turns that down. Leyland hits the front cone. Ellis comes across the front now, and Sanders throws a big hammer, but there's no one there. It's a late stall, and Sanders arms out, asking where his options were. Good D from the deep space O-line.
Yeah, it turned on very hard. That pick came from just, there were 3 or 4 bodies Lemmings were trying to get in front of the disc, and Deep Space had 3 or 4 in reply. Similarly in the end zone. And
it is a timeout called.
Very casual one.
Very casually by Elliot Cook.
Yeah, interesting to call it so far back on your own end zone line as well.
I suppose there's been a lot of turnovers. They are going to need to take a rest, gather themselves, get a bit of water on board, and try and prepare to go down the field and score. So this timeout, we can have a quick look at how the game's been going so far stats-wise, and we can talk you through it. So there's been a pretty similar number of turnovers for both teams, but they've been distributed very differently. So we've got 16 turns from Lemmings and 14 turns from Deep Space, but we can see on our sheet that Deep Space's offense has turned it 6 times and their D 8 times. That's where their turnovers have come from. But for Lemmings, it's been 3 turnovers on the D line, very clinical on the D line, but 13 turnovers from their offense. That's why you see so many break chances for Deep Space. Only 4 clean holds in 16 points as well, Harry.
I mean, the wind has been strong and the defense has also been strong as well, but you do feel that the clinicalness of the Lemmings D-line shows how possible it is to get in these clean shots. It's not necessarily the line I would have been looking for to make that point, but it does show that it's very possible to get those clean scores. So we'll see Deep Space picking it up right on their own end zone line, and the danger of taking a timeout here is that you let the defense set in quite a difficult position.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can set your own play, you give yourselves a rest, but exactly what Harry said there, the D is able to put themselves in exactly the situation they want to take whatever you're trying to do away. You see Sanders in the lane, just off Khan on the far side, looking to see if he can get involved in anything there. And Denniston comes across, and Sanders does indeed poach in to stop that. We're now with Khan. Sanders recovers his space. Peach closes the distance to a mile downfield as it comes to Itamendi on this near side in his own end zone. And Sasha Haynes nearly gets there. Fire with an absolutely fantastic catch. Trailing edge with the left hand to save possession for Deep Space there. Itamendi. Denniston with the disc. Sanders slips, but recovers onto Itamendi. Not before Itamendi's able to continue onto the break side. Cook with the disc. Halfway now. Howard to Khan. Rachel Lee has space, but now her defender's recovered, and it's with Itamendi being marked by Sanders. Still a kind of FM look from Lemmings. It's Ellis marking Denniston. Ray leaves her feet to catch it. Back to Khan. Khan with a big break to Cook. Cook plays out, but can't quite get there. Really smooth over from Deep Space until that final shot.
Again, we saw quite a deep stack that meant they were having to use their handlers quite a bit. And I do have to ask, does Fee Ray have glue on her hands? Because the grabs that Fee has been making throughout this game, and in that point especially, is bailing Deep Space out of a couple of situations.
Both left-handed as well. Tough when you're right-handed to bring in a catch like that with the left, but both excellent catches. Sanders with very few options. That is definitely a high stall option, and somehow reeled in by May. I don't know how he caught that. May with the disc, pops it back to Haynes. Back with Haynes. Haynes tries to go to Sanders, who reels it in behind him with the left hand. Peach is in the end zone. Sanders fakes the break, looking for an option. Comes back to May. May to Howard. Haynes beats Lee to the open side. Brings that in. Leyland looking for space now. Sanders goes up the line. Haynes doesn't like that. May goes up the line. Haynes doesn't like that either. Howard with the disc in the middle of the field. Peach comes back. Howard goes to Peach. Leyland hits the front cone. Looking for Howard. Peach. Back to Ellis. Things calm down slightly after that. Absolutely crazy 10-15 seconds. Ellis with a big inside break, but not enough on that to get to May. And the Deep Space O has another chance, but this point is absolutely insane.
There's a injury call on the field as well. I think Rachel Lee is going to be leaving, and surprise, surprise, Hannah Yorwith is going to be coming on to give some energy back to Deep Space.
So Hannah Yorwith in for this O-line, and Lemmings take the opportunity to take off Ellis, who had that absolutely phenomenal layout catch earlier in the point, and bring on Erin McGreedy, wearing a shirt that says Daily, but trust me, that is Erin McGreedy, former Reading player. I think was on Reading when they won Nationals and Euros. Certainly went to Worlds with them. With you were on that team, weren't you, Harry?
Yes,
there we go.
with me, yes.
Just remember that, yeah. It's good pressure from McGreedy on Denniston for the catch. Looking back for Cook. Cook looking for that break side, gets it to Denniston. Yorwith on the disc. Cook's gone deep and has space, and Yorwith takes that shot, and Cook is able to watch it into his hands, and that is a score, but that is another long drawn-out score. Tough hold for the Deep Space O-line.
Not necessarily what they brought Hannah Yorwith in to do, but with a backhand like that, you've got to be scared. You know, a lot of pressure on McGreedy, nearly getting the D on that play. You almost feel sad that the bailout option from Sanders earlier in the point didn't end up paying off, because it's one of the few times when I've been so excited for the thrower highlight more than the catch.
It was certainly a high stall bailout, just get rid of it, and May tracking it down beautifully. There was some point with a couple of the catches that were made there, some of the layout grabs and left-handed catches and all kinds of stuff. It was a high wire act from both teams.
With that said, that would have been a big point for Lemmings to reel in. It is now 10-7 to Deep Space. Obviously, would have been 9-8.
Yeah, and there's under 7 minutes left in this game now. So it's, you would think, pretty unlikely we get to cap. So at this stage, every point becomes hugely important for Lemmings, because every point they're able to eat into this lead now means that they are going to give themselves a shorter ladder to climb at the end of the game. Deep Space, on the other hand, know that every point they put on the board means they're giving themselves a buffer to try and secure their first national championship. As the pull comes in from So. The Lemmings O-line, walking towards the disc. Vile on the mark. Wilson resets backwards to Marklew. Back to Wilson and Marklew again. In the middle of the field. Andrews goes deep, being marked by Moss. On this sideline to Pantling. Pantling to Wilson again. Andrews with the disc now. Coward being marked by Kemp. Coward on the disc. Decides not to shoot to the end zone. It's Wilson instead. Wilson turns down that shot to Pantling. Instead, comes to Harms. Harms looking for an option here. Nice, solid, safe one to Wilson. And it looks as though Pantling has worked herself some space, but that bobbles just over her hand and she can't bring it in. Really nice offense from Lemmings up to that point, but just can't quite execute.
We've seen the disc bobble in the air quite a bit this game, and what you make of those chances has been the difference between these teams so far. That the Lemmings D-line has made a fair bit of it. Can the Deep Space D-line, with the strong players they have, put this one in?
So the last break that Deep Space got was 6-1. They haven't had a break in some time now. The Lemmings O-line has been able to battle back. Every time they lose the disc, they're able to get it back, but Deep Space swinging it all the way across the field. Georgie Hill down the line to Nikki Koshov. And Kemp has space downfield. Yorwith is there as well. And it looks as though Harms just did enough to knock that away from Kemp. And there's an injury called from Wilson.
Yes, maybe Harms just had her body in the way to prevent the bid, or even the presence can be enough. It's hard to understate how much it is a mental game to catch the disc in these circumstances during a UKU Nationals final.
So Wilson taking a sub, that's a blow for the Lemmings O-line. He has been their centre handler pretty much throughout the game. On comes Cubitt. And then Nick Moss will also take a sub. as on comes deep space captain Phil Sandwell. So Cubit will take up the role, you would think now, of centre handler. No, it'll be Markley. Markley who takes up that role. And Cubit slaps hands with Sandwell, two players who have been training together on the GB Mixed Masters squad this year. Markley with the disc. Goes over to Daly, but it looks to me as though that may have hit the ground in front of Daly's hands. Certainly it would have been close.
Looked to me like it may have been up. Her wrist was certainly underneath it to prevent that bottom edge from touching the ground. On the other hand, in the action of catching, was she able to keep it above?
Yeah, that disc certainly looked close as the teams discuss.
No.
Teams discussed. There's getting options or getting ideas from all over the field, and it looks as though it's going to be a contested down call. So it's back to Markley. So fairly early on in the stall count, this Lemmings O-line got all the way to the end zone, couldn't execute from there. Deep space with a deep shot, didn't quite come off. And now both teams resetting back to their original positions with the Lemmings on O. So Daly with the disc, goes around the mark to Andrews. Coward again has space, but Andrews instead comes to Pantling. Pantling looks at Harms. Harms to Cubit. Cubit goes deep for Markley, but Markley, I don't think was expecting that, had to spin all the way around to try and get it.
I think if Markley had looked over the other shoulder, that might have been an easy score. With that said, if you put a disc up like that and you're putting that little margin on it such that you're depending on the shoulder, maybe that's on you as well.
So the disc coming in and Cubit dropping all the way off to stand in the lane. Vile uses the poach to go to Sandwell and gain 4 or 5 meters. Sandwell goes around and looking for Yorworth. Daly gets there, but it looks as though Yorworth is calling a strip. There was definitely no contact on anything but the disc, but I'm sure Yorworth is saying here she had stopped rotation.
Yes, Daly, I actually feel may have even been slightly ahead of Yorworth, but to avoid body contact to a side lane and was having to reach back.
The discussion continues. It's a very close one, very close play. I think there's going to be one would guess, a contested foul. Uncontested, or accepted, excuse me, foul from Daly. So the disc remains with Yorworth. And Georgie Hill with a poach for now. So the deep space D-line here looking to extend their lead further as the time really does begin to run down. We're under 2 minutes now left in the game. Georgie Hill going deep, looking for So, and Pantling, tall figure of Pantling comes in from behind and knocks it away, but a foul is called by So. It did look as though So's coming straight up, so you can certainly see that Pantling could well have come through the back of her hands there.
So I certainly don't think it's unreasonable to make that call. That's what happened in the moment. That's one of those where it just depends on the specific hands, and I don't think necessarily have the best perspective from there. With that said, good job from Pantling to catch that second disc. When something does bobble, often some players will just leave that. Pantling was switched on enough to make sure that after that first you did get it. With that said, if it is a foul, it will nullify.
So it looks as though the foul has been retracted and we stay with Pantling. You may have heard the hooter has gone, so it'll be complete this point and add 1. So if Lemmings do hold here, we are on a game to 11. If Deep Space are able to get the break, then we'll be on a game to 12. So at the very least, Lemmings going to have to score 3 more points, but laid out there, Daly has hit the deck. She stayed on the ground for a moment, and the Deep Space D-line is now on the doorstep, looking to try and get this break. Yorworth with the disc. Nothing going on in front of her until Koshov absolutely jukes out. And Andrews and goes past him. I'm not sure what the call is there. It looks as though they slap hands is an uncontested or an accepted foul, which must be that Koshov has fouled Andrews in the action of getting open. Otherwise, there would be no reason for the disc to go back. And it does look as though Daly, having stayed on the ground for a moment, has now called an injury. Phil Sandwell, having come on in this point, is now coming off. And on comes Alvaro Otamendi, with Barnett coming on for Lemmings.
It's been a long point.
A long point. So Hanny Yorth with the disc, on the doorstep, looks back at Vile, back to Yorworth. Yorworth has options, but instead comes to Vile. Yorworth again, looking for Koshov, but comes back to Vile instead. Lemmings pushing deep space backwards here. Andrews with the force on Koshov. Hill with the disc now. Hill back to Vile. Kemp coming out of the end zone. Koshov on the break side, and it's a high break by Vile to him. Georgie Hill seems to have a lot of space there, but it's gone to Vile, to Hill eventually again, and Yorworth open on the front cone, and that's a goal for deep space to put them 11-7 up in a game to 12.
Got to say there, I was a little bit surprised by how loose Alec Markley was being on Sam Vile on that handler force.
Yeah.
Because he poaching off, particularly for the first couple of points, but pass after pass after pass, it was just clearly going through Vile. They were staying safe. And I just feel at some point you've got to turn on that tight handler mark to try and force them to take a throw upfield they don't want to take, rather than them being able to wait until they get the throw of their choice.
So, real nail-biting time now for Lemmings. They have to score 5 points to win this game. Deep Space, on the other hand, need to score just 1. So the D-line is going to get their only opportunity to try and put this away.
Lemmings have, of course, already scored 4 points in a row this game. They scored 7 points in a row against Smog. 5 points in a row seems a lot, but it is certainly something that this Lemmings team is capable of.
Yep. And it's one of those things, isn't it, Harry? 5 points in a row seems a lot until you score 2. And then it doesn't seem like it's only 3 now. It's not that many. And then you score 3. It's like, well, you're basically more than halfway there now. You start eating away at it, and it starts becoming more and more realistic. But in order to do that, they're going to need a D-roll. And to get a D-roll, they're going to have to hold first.
It's the classic thing. You just need to score point by point. Can they get this one?
So out comes the Lemmings O-line. And it's Leyland on the disc to Orr. Goes to May. May looking for an option downfield. Sanders being marked by Fisher. Comes into that underneath space. Reels it in. He's looking downfield. Looking for a big shot. Goes to Miras under. Miras marked by Thomas. Looks backwards at Sanders. Centers it. Sanders looks at May. And comes to May on this near side. Sanders hits the line. May throws that up in the air. Sanders takes it in front of his own player. Knocks Ellis to the ground. Shoots deep for Miras, but Miras just comes underneath it and can't quite complete. Just slightly rolls over her head.
Maybe a little bit too much adrenaline there. You know, you make a big play, you want to do that big shot, but these are not easy conditions. Deep space do not give a lot of opportunities, and that rolling shot is a difficult one to take sometimes.
It is, and the deep space D-line have an opportunity to win the national championship on this point. Tom Fisher picks it up at the back of the end zone. He'll be marked by Nate Sanders, captain and leader for this Lemmings team for several years now. Fisher breaks the mark to Archer, former Spice player. Archer with an offhand throw to Yorworth, her former teammate on Spice, now teammates on Deep Space. Fisher. Gilroy just in the center of the field to Thomas. Good catch under pressure. Thomas collects himself. Back to Yorworth, just sitting up in the breeze. Thomas again. Thomas has Yorworth. Yorworth, who's been open a lot basically every game that Deep Space have played. Thomas across to Fisher, but Sanders is able to just jump the line there, get in front and knock it away, get the disc back for Lemmings. Picked up by Orr. Sanders goes deep. Orr shoots, looking for him. Gilboy's going to get there as well, but it's a collision in the just outside the end zone. May has it after it went over everybody. Miras looking for an option. Sanders goes, but on the break side, not much there. Miras now looking for someone to throw to. Goes back to Sanders. Sanders swings to Ellis, who snatches it out of the air and then hits Miras, but Miras can't get her hands around it. It looks like a hit in the midriff. And they are just checking the disc to make sure it's okay, and it appears as though it's not okay, because it sounds like they're going to want to change it. Oh no, looks okay.
I think that was another case of Lemmings all crowding to the same area, not having the clean opportunities we've seen Deep Space have with some of their end zone offenses as well.
Yep. Yep, agreed. All a bit frantic. Miras didn't really have too many options. The only options she was getting were on the break side. And it looks as though there is an injury call here, because Thacker is coming onto the field. Not 100% sure who came off there. But we carry on anyway. Fisher with the disc. A poach on the dump, and Gilboy gets it in plenty of space. Archer has space going deep. Gilboy looking at the reset, comes to Thomas. Savile's free in the center of the field. But some good poaching downfield. It's into Yorworth. Thacker's going deep. Savile in the middle of the field. Sanders can't poach off and take that one away. Savile thinks about that deep one to Thomas, but probably a good holster there. Would have been a very difficult throw. Fisher and Savile working between themselves. Savile over to the far side to Yorworth. Deep Space clearing that area of the field. Savile goes to the end zone, but Sanders is the only one attacking that. Fisher nowhere near it, or decides not to go deep to May, despite May being matched up with Yorworth. And that's a shot by Ellis, where Yorworth was in the perfect position and takes it in from Sanders. And Deep Space, quick start. Another harem-scarum point between these two teams. Gilboy with the disc and takes a timeout to slow things down, Harry.
I think a better position to take a timeout here. A little bit of way up. The Deep Space really want this on defense. Let's see what they can do.
They do, but they're taking a break, and we're going to take a break as well.
Always on the move? You can keep up to date with ULTI.TV on all of our social media channels. Like, follow, subscribe, share us with a friend, or send us a message just to say hey. Thank you for supporting us in our mission to grow Ultimate everywhere.
Welcome back to the national final as we see Deep Space 11-7 to the good. Their D-line has the disc to try and win this game. Tim Gilboy to Fisher. Fisher going deep for Yorworth. Yorworth has space. Yorworth reels it in, catches the goal. That is it. Deep Space are your 2023 UK Mixed National Champions, winning the game 12-7 over Lemmings, Harry.
I think that counts as an effective timeout. Although I don't know what the timeout conversation was, because go long to Yorwith has been their most consistent strategy so far. She is so rapid and so reliable.
Yeah, you don't need a whiteboard to draw that one up. You're quick, you run that way, and it works beautifully. Fisher on the reset identifies the space and puts it out in front of Yorwith for the score. A great start to the game is what fueled the win for Deep Space. As we see the centre to Fisher, you can see Yorwith take off. No hesitation whatsoever from Fisher, puts it out in front, and despite the best efforts of Sasha Haynes, an extremely good defender, an extremely quick player, not able to reel in GB women's star Hannah Yorwith, who brings it in, secures the point, secures the game, and secures the trophy for Deep Space.
It's been a long time. Has that trophy ever been in London?
That trophy, has it ever been in London? Oh, you're going to need to keep talking while I think.
Of course I can. Very well done for Deep Space. Formed, I believe, in the 2016-17 season. So this has been a long time coming. They were a strong team initially, but they did want to build, and they've been in 3 finals now. Finally able to make to the good, and Deep Space are the national champions.
The answer, I think, is no. It's never been in London before. The big thing, obviously, for Deep Space was the breaks. Able to get 7 breaks. 2 breaks to win that game, scored 3 in a row from 10-7, or from 9-7, sorry, to win that game. That's the big thing. They had a lot of break chances. You can see the O-line for Lemmings turned over quite frequently, whereas Deep Space's turns much more balanced. You had 9 from their O-line and 12 from their D-line for 21 turns. You might not be able to see it on the graphic. It's 21 turns and 25 for Lemmings, but 19 turns from the Lemmings O-line. That's really where this game's won and lost, Harry.
I mean, you can also say it's won and lost in the start. That 6-1 lead ending up being the margin at the end of the game as well. You know, there's sort of 4 phases there. They go up 6-1. Lemmings managed to claw it back. There's trading after half, and then just at the end, Deep Space pulled away very slightly to make it a, you might say, comfortable victory, but I don't think Deep Space will ever have felt that way.
No, I don't think so. After that run to start with, Lemmings did a great job bringing it all the way back. A lot of young players, and it's difficult, I suppose, and very easy in those situations to just let the game run away from you. Difficult to get back into it, but they pulled themselves back together, got their heads into it, made it a real game, made it a tight game, an exciting one. A lot of opportunities to try and get back into it. But a good performance by Deep Space all weekend here at UK Nationals. They go home as the UK National Champions, bring the trophy back to London for the first time. We have one more final left. We have the women's final between another London team, Iceni and Bristol. So that game will be coming up next.
Of course, the Open Trophy not in London.
Open Trophy not in London for the first time. So it won't be a complete London domination, even if Iceni do win here. But 2 first-time champions at UK Nationals, and now we'll have a final between 2 teams that have won many times to see who gets the 3rd. But that was a very exciting mixed final. We'll leave you there. From me, Sean Colfer, and from Harry Mason, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you all soon.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Ultimate.
ULTI.TV.